New study shows that drinking diet soda and sugary drinks could boost your risk of a dangerous heart condition. It finds that one medium-sized fast food diet soda a day can raise the risk of an irregular heartbeat known as AFib by 20%. A similar size of added sugar beverages can raise the risk of the condition by 10%. About 6 million Americans have the condition. It could lead to stroke, blood clots, and heart failure.
I think they haven't understood something. When we say the homeland or death we shall overcome, it's not just a phrase, it has its full meaning. We are not afraid and we will never be afraid. We will continue our struggle. They have undoubtedly and surely scared numerous African heads of state. We ask them questions about why you don't do as we do, why you don't support us. Some tell us they are entangled, some tell us they cannot. Let us not.
Picture this. It's early morning in Washington, D.C. The sun hasn't even risen yet, but in the White House Situation Room, red lights are flashing on screens. Phones are ringing off the hook. Cabinet secretaries are rushing into meetings with faces as pale as paper. Why? Because halfway across the world, on African soil, a decision has just been made that could rewrite the rules of global trade forever. 6 of America's biggest soda brands, the same brands that have ruled Africa's markets for decades, have just been banned from an entire continent, not a city, not a country, a whole continent. Think about that for a moment. For decades, these brands were untouchable. Their logos were everywhere, painted on village walls, splashed across football stadiums, printed on school books. They were not just drinks. They were symbols of Western power, of American culture, of the so-called global order. And now, overnight, they're gone. Imagine the panic in corporate headquarters in Atlanta, New York, and Chicago. Imagine the boardrooms where CEOs are staring at spreadsheets showing billions in losses. Imagine the investors screaming on Wall Street because one of their most secure markets just vanished. And imagine, just for a moment, the pride of Africa, because this was not a random decision. This was not an accident. This was a deliberate, coordinated move by African nations who have finally had enough of being the dumping ground for products too unhealthy for Western consumers, enough of being treated as second-class markets. Enough of watching multinational corporations suck billions in profit from our soil while leaving our people with rising diabetes rates, polluted water, and no share of the wealth. This ban is not just about soda, it is about sovereignty. Let me ask you, when was the last time Africa made the world stop and listen? When was the last time a decision in Addis Ababa or Accra or Ouagadougou caused billionaires in America to lose sleep? When was the last time the balance of power tilted in our favor? This is that moment, and make no mistake, this moment didn't just happen. It was built on years of frustration, on decades of unequal trade, on centuries of being treated as a market to be exploited, never as a partner to be respected. The U.S. thought Africa would never dare do this. They thought we were too divided, too weak, too dependent on their aid and loans to push back. But today, Africa has shown that it can speak with one voice, and when we do, the world trembles. Some in Washington are calling this an act of economic war. Others are calling it reckless. But here's the truth they won't admit. This is justice. This is Africa finally saying, we will no longer drink what poisons us. We will no longer buy what enriches you but sickens us. We will no longer allow our markets to be flooded with products that do not serve our people. And the question now is not what will America do, the question is what will Africa do next? Because this is only the beginning. Think about the power this shows us. If we can ban soda, what else can we do? We can ban the dumping of toxic fertilizers. We can ban unfair trade practices. We can ban the import of food that destroys our farmers' livelihoods. This is bigger than soda. This is a signal that Africa is ready to control its destiny. And that is why Washington is in full-blown panic mode. Because they know that once Africa realizes its own power, the old order collapses. The days of one-sided deals are over. The days of Africa being told what to do are over. So buckle up, because what you are about to hear is not just a story about a ban. It's the story of a continent waking up, standing tall, and sending shockwaves across the entire global economy. This is the story of how a simple decision to protect our health could end up reshaping global trade, rewriting diplomatic relations, and even shaking the foundations of U.S. economic dominance. This is the story of Africa finally saying no, and trust me, this is just the beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, citizens of the continent and friends from every corner of the globe, today we stand at the dawn of one of the boldest and most transformative decisions Africa has ever taken. A decision that has sent shockwaves across boardrooms in New York, Atlanta, Washington, and Silicon Valley. A decision that has made stock markets tremble, lobbyists panic, and multinational CEOs lose sleep. Africa has banned 6 of the biggest U.S. soda brands from its shelves. Yes, you heard me right. No longer will the sugary giants that have dominated African markets for decades dictate what our children drink, what our communities consume, or what chemicals flow through the veins of our youth. No longer will we be dumping grounds for products considered too toxic or too controversial for Western consumers themselves. This is not just about soda. This is about sovereignty. For decades, multinational corporations have treated Africa as their playground. They've flooded our markets with products full of high-fructose corn syrup, aspartame, artificial dyes, and chemical cocktails banned in their home countries. They have marketed aggressively in our towns and villages, turning sugar-filled beverages into status symbols while rising rates of diabetes, heart disease, and obesity silently devastated our people. And what did Washington say? What did the FDA say? They said nothing. They let it happen because Africa's suffering meant profit. But something changed. Something woke up in us. African scientists began publishing data showing alarming levels of toxic ingredients in imported sodas, levels far higher than what was allowed in Europe or America. Health ministers from Ghana to South Africa gathered. Farmers, activists, consumer groups joined the table. And for the first time, instead of bending to pressure from powerful lobbyists, African nations decided to act together. This ban was not rushed. It was debated, studied, tested. And when the results came in, they were damning. The sugar levels in these drinks were sometimes double what Americans consumed. The dyes used were linked to hyperactivity in children. The preservatives were known to cause long-term health complications, and the worst part, these companies had quietly reformulated healthier versions for Western markets while dumping the old dangerous recipes here. That, my friends, was the final insult. So Africa said enough. From midnight last night, 6 major American soda brands can no longer be sold, distributed, or advertised on African soil. Warehouses are being emptied, shipments turned back at ports, factories inspected for compliance. And let me tell you, the reaction has been seismic. In Washington, emergency trade meetings are being held. Senators are screaming about economic warfare. Lobbyists are demanding sanctions. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce has called this an existential threat to American soft drink dominance. But make no mistake, this was not an attack on America. This was a defense of African lives. Because what is the value of a trade relationship that poisons your people? What is the worth of cheap drinks if they cost you billions in healthcare bills, millions in lost productivity, and countless lives cut short? We are not banning innovation. We are not banning competition. We are banning exploitation. And here is the part that is really driving American corporations. Crazy Africa is not just banning harmful sodas. We are building our own beverage revolution. Across the continent, local entrepreneurs are stepping up with healthier alternatives, drinks made from baobab, hibiscus, ginger, rooibos, moringa, and indigenous fruits, drinks with natural sweeteners, rich in vitamins and antioxidants, drinks that actually nourish the body instead of harming it. This is not just a health decision. It is an economic strategy. By removing foreign soda monopolies, we open space for African businesses to thrive, create jobs, and keep profits here at home. Every bottle sold will now benefit African farmers, African distributors, African factories. The money stays here. The value stays here. And if America is furious, let them be. For too long, we have been told that standing up for ourselves will scare away investors. But what good are investors who profit while our children suffer? The investors who will stay are the ones who respect us, who innovate responsibly, who see us not as passive consumers but as partners. We are entering a new era. An era where Africa dictates the terms of trade, where Africa's health comes before foreign profit margins, where Africa uses its power as a 1.4 billion strong consumer market to demand better. And if this decision hurts Wall Street, if it makes certain CEOs panic, if it forces American corporations to reformulate their products and rethink their business models, good. That means the message has landed, because this ban is not the end. It is the beginning. Tomorrow it might be junk food. Next year, it might be harmful pharmaceuticals. The year after, it could be exploitative labor practices or toxic waste dumping. Africa is awake now, and once you wake up a continent, there is no going back. To sleep. To the people of Africa, I say, this victory is yours. You demanded change. You refused to be silent. You exposed the truth. And today, you are drinking the first taste of freedom, literally. To the corporations watching this speech from boardrooms in New York and Atlanta, I say this. Reform your products, respect our people, or prepare to lose one of the fastest growing markets on Earth. Africa is done being poisoned. Africa is done being exploited. Africa is ready to thrive on its own terms. And that, my friends, is why the world is shocked. Because for the first time, Africa is not waiting for permission to protect itself. Africa is leading, and the rest of the world will have no choice but to follow. The future tastes different. the future tastes African. We have reached the defining moment of this discussion, the point where words meet destiny, where choices determine the future, and where Africa must decide whether we will continue to swallow what we are given or rise and demand what we deserve. This soda ban is not just a policy, it is a declaration, it is a line in the sand. It is Africa saying enough. Enough of being the testing ground for unsafe products. Enough of being the dumping ground for rejected formulas. Enough of being told that our lives are worth less than the lives of others. This moment is so much bigger than soda. This is about power, the power to choose what enters our borders, what fills our markets, what touches our children's lips. For too long, that power was outsourced to corporations headquartered thousands of miles away. For too long, lobbyists in Washington dictated what was poured into African glasses. No more. Today, we are taking back that power, and the world is watching. Washington is panicking because they see what this really means. If Africa can do this in the beverage industry, we can do it in every sector. Agriculture, technology, energy, finance, no more one-sided trade deals, no more toxic products, no more exploitation disguised as partnership, and they are right to be afraid. Because this is not just about Africa, this is a spark that could ignite a global movement. Other regions are watching closely. Latin America is watching. Southeast Asia is watching. They are asking themselves, if Africa can stand up to these giants, why can't we? But let us be clear, with great courage comes great responsibility. This is not the time to celebrate and then go back to business as usual. This is the time to build, to innovate, to create African entrepreneurs. This is your moment. Step forward. Fill the gap. Build companies that can compete with the best in the world. African farmers, this is your time. Plant the crops that will supply this new market. Create drinks that tell the story of our soil, our climate, our culture. African governments, hold the line. Do not bow to pressure. Do not allow secret lobbying to undo what has been done. Stand firm in the knowledge that you have the support of 1 billion people who are ready for this change. And to the young Africans listening today, you are the generation that will carry this revolution forward. You are the ones who will refuse to be consumers only, but insist on being producers, inventors, innovators. You are the ones who will make Africa not just a market for the world, but a marketplace to the world. So let America be furious. Let Wall Street cry. Let corporate executives in New York hold emergency meetings. Because for the first time in history, Africa is no longer afraid of their anger. We are not asking for permission. We are not seeking approval. We are not negotiating our dignity. We are reclaiming our future. And when future historians write about this era, they will say that this was the turning point, the moment Africa broke the chains of economic dependence and began forging its own path. Imagine that future with me. Imagine a continent where African-made drinks dominate the shelves of every store, from Cape Town to Casablanca. Imagine a continent where farmers are paid fair prices, where our children grow up healthier, where our economies grow stronger because we kept wealth circulating at home. Imagine a continent where the world comes to us not to exploit us, but to partner with us because we set the standard. That future is not far away. It starts today. It starts with each of us. And so I say to Africa, raise your head high. This is your victory. This is your moment. The world tried to drown us in sugar and chemicals, but instead, we have emerged stronger, prouder, and more united. Let this victory echo across every village, every town, every city. Let it inspire every African nation to look at what we consume, what we produce, what we allow, and to ask, does this serve us? Does this protect us? Does this build us? If the answer is no, then let us have the courage to reject it. This is not the end of the story. This is the beginning of a new Africa, an Africa that chooses health over profit, sovereignty over subservience, and unity over division. The world will try to tempt us, bribe us, divide us, threaten us. But we must stay focused, because what is at stake is bigger than soda, bigger than trade, bigger than economics. What is at stake is the soul of Africa, and we will not sell it. Not for $1 billion, not for $1 trillion, not for anything less than the future our children deserve. So let us leave this moment with fire. In our hearts, let us leave knowing that we are making history. Let us leave knowing that America's shock is Africa's pride, because the days when we quietly accepted whatever was offered are gone. Africa has spoken. Africa is awake. Africa is rising, and no superpower on earth can stop what is coming next. And so we arrive at the end of this monumental chapter, but in truth this is not an end at all. It is the beginning of a new era, an era where Africa no longer asks for permission to protect its people, its resources, and its future. An era where the so-called giants of the global economy can no longer assume that Africa will simply accept whatever they pour into our markets, whether it is products, policies, or politics. The ban on 6 of America's biggest soda brands was not just a health policy. It was a statement, a bold, fearless, unapologetic declaration that Africa will decide what is good for Africa, that our markets will no longer be laboratories for other nations' failed products, that our children will no longer be collateral damage for corporate profits, and look at the ripple effect already shaking the world. Global stock markets took a hit. CEOs are holding emergency meetings. Lobbyists are pressuring Washington to do something. But what can they do? They can't force a continent to keep drinking what it no longer wants. They can't intimidate Africa back into silence. This is why America is truly shocked, because for the first time in a very long time, they have been told no and they have no leverage left to change the answer. This moment proves something powerful. Africa holds leverage. For too long, the narrative was that Africa was dependent on the world, dependent on Western aid, Western loans, Western technology. But now we see that the world is dependent on Africa too, on our markets, on our raw materials, on our growing populations and rising economies. And when we use that leverage wisely, we can shift the balance of power. But here is the crucial part. This is not just about rejecting what is bad. It is about building what is good. If we stop at the ban, we miss the bigger picture. We must replace those banned sodas with African-owned, African-produced, African-branded alternatives. We must turn this moment into an opportunity for local industries to rise, for farmers to supply natural ingredients, for entrepreneurs to build the next generation of healthy African drinks that can compete not just in Africa, but globally. Imagine a future where African products are not just consumed by Africans, but exported to Europe, Asia, and yes, even America. Imagine shelves in New York stocked with healthy beverages made in Accra, Addis Ababa, or Lagos. Imagine Africa not as the consumer of other people's ideas, but as the creator of products that set global trends. That is the future this decision opens up. And to those who fear retaliation from Washington, let them try. Every threat they make only proves our point. They were never trading with us as equals. True partnership does not require intimidation. True friendship does not demand that we sacrifice our people's health for profit. Let this be the start of a new standard, one where African leaders prioritize African lives over multinational balance sheets. One where trade deals are fair, transparent, and beneficial to our farmers, our workers, and our children. History will look back on this moment and see it not as a small trade decision, but as a turning point, the day Africa stood up and said, "We will no longer be exploited. We will no longer be poisoned. We will no longer stay silent." The US can be shocked. Wall Street can panic. Corporate America can scream. None of it matters. What matters is that Africa has finally remembered its power, and once that memory takes root, there is no going back. This is the dawn of a self-respecting Africa. This is the rise of a continent that knows its value. This is the birth of a new economic order where Africa negotiates from strength, not weakness. So as we close this chapter, remember this: it was never just about soda. It was about sovereignty. It was about dignity. It was about telling the world that Africa is awake and will never again be ignored. The world is watching. The question is, what will we do next?